All right, so we're back with the EU OPS interview series. This is Matt.
Hello.
All right, so first of all, what is your OPS type?
So my OPS type is the masculine, feminine, NiFi sleep, consume, play, blast.
Awesome. And you're a number three, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. I got typed by Mike from OPS.
Oh, really?
Well, typed and typed. I did a couple of email exchanges with him. I sent him a typing video also, and he said that um, actually he was going to yeah, just check check if my type was the same, if he thought the type was the same as I was initially typed as. And then I asked him about my social type, and he said that 3 is the most likely
Mm.
to be. So yeah.
So when you said initially typed, do you mean that you were typed before you got Mike to type you?
Yeah, because I was typed, let's see, in end of 2020, so 2.5 years ago, and then I was typed by Shannon and Dave, and then there were also kind of retypings going around, but I was not planning to be to have my type retyped, so I just sent an email because I kind of wanted to fish my social type, but he offered to check my video to see if he could
Mm.
check if I needed a retype or anything like that. So
I see. Okay. So you got a two and one. I see.
yeah.
All right. All right. So how about your EU typing? What is your EU typing?
So that's social self press 593 with a um, one
Two
one
six.
two six overlay. Ah, brain fart.
All right, that's really interesting. We have a lot to look at here because, first of all, you are a feeler in OPS, but in Enneagram, you're a five, which is supposed to be like completely emotionally detached.
Yeah, that's
So
the theory.
that's gonna be really interesting. So how did you get into OPS?
Um, COVID. I had a lot of times on my hand. I suddenly did not have so much work to do, and then I stumbled over MBTI again. My
Hmm.
first time was 12 years ago, but I just did one online test and I found a result, and then I forgot about it. And then I rekindled uh, my interest again, did an online test, and then I started a deep dive. And so after a couple of months, I discovered OPS, and then I switched to OPS, and I continued doing only OPS.
I see. All right.
And then I kind of went immediately for typing as soon as possible.
Wow. Okay, so since you got it as soon as possible, did you even have a self-type?
Yeah, I had. It was very close. So my self type was double feminine, NiFi sleep, blast, uh, play, consume. So I swapped blast and consume.
I see. Okay. Wow, that's very close. I mean, they do say the mopes can see themselves a little better, so maybe I don't know. That's really
Yeah,
close.
and and also. So when I sent my typing video, I had learned OPS for 4 months.
Hmm.
So I didn't, yeah. So the concepts were still not 100% clear to me. So when I got the result back, I found out that, oh, okay, I have not quite understood what it means to be blast and consume. So I
Yeah.
accepted it without any question because it was a learning experience. Even the typing was just a learning experience for me.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, blast and consume. I feel like most people have a harder time understanding blast and consume versus sleep and play. Sleep and play, it's a little more obvious.
Yeah,
Just resting versus being energetic. So, um, but blast consume is like, oh, well, technically you can teach people your consume is just a consumer port. And then with blast, you can still learn with it. It's just different. So, yeah. All right. So then, how did you end up getting into EU? I'm pretty sure that came after, right?
yeah.
Okay.
So I knew about an Enneagram while I was doing OPS, but I was focused on OPS, so I only knew about it, but I didn't check it out. But at some point, I had kind of done my deep dive into OPS, and I was in a typologies server, and they were talking about Enneagram for quite a while, and I was a little bit annoyed that I could not understand what they were talking about. So I figured out I have to learn a little
Hmm.
bit so I could understand what they were talking about. And then I got interested in Enneagram, and I went for a typing there too immediately.
Hmm.
So I
So you don't
started.
waste time.
No. No, when I get interested in stuff, I focus on
Masculine
it.
consume.
Yeah,
Yeah.
total focus. There is nothing. There's no in between.
Huh. Wow. So, were you more shocked? Well, I don't even have to ask that question because you said that your self-type in OPS was so close to it. But I was going to ask, were you more shocked by what you got in OPS versus in EU?
No,
I'm
because my self type in EU was pretty close.
it was?
Yeah,
Oh, so you were close on both.
yeah. So
Wow. Okay.
so my first type in OPS was 592, and I had absolutely no ideas about instincts, and I thought I was probably self-press blind because how much I kind of neglect self-press things. So it was not I thought I was sexual, but I thought I was not self-press.
Hmm.
So I thought I was social sexual. I was pretty sure I was social first.
Oh, interesting. That's really interesting because when I got social self-pres, I had a similar thought process. I was like, well, at least for me, it was like not understanding sexual. And so it was hard to think, well, why is it last? Like, if I don't know, I don't know. But definitely with the self-pres in the middle, anything that's in the middle, you can still have moments where you neglect it. Um, and then like if you're not looking at the overall picture, you may think, oh, well, that could just be last, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Instincts were kind of I when I first started with Enneagram, I ignored the instincts more or less because I take one piece at a time. So first it was first I wanted to find my core, and then I could find the rest of my trifix, and then I could check out the instincts later.
Hmm, I see. So when you were going over your EU typing, did you see a connection to your OPS typing?
After I got the type, when I was settled on both types, you mean?
Yeah, like after you got your EU, because you got your EU typing after your OPS typing.
Exactly.
So,
So I was typed last year in EU. Yeah, one year ago, and so I know that the stereotypical 5 is either an INTP or an
Mhm.
INTJ, and I
Oh
was
yeah.
like pretty close to the stereotypical INTJ, except for I'm an IFI. But it's OPS, so the rules are a little bit different compared to MBTI. We cannot really compare those systems. So, but I know that having high sleep, because I know fives are pretty much known for being withdrawn and focused.
Hmm.
So having high sleep and consume made a lot of sense,
Hmm.
and having high intuition also makes a little bit sense. But I was kind of, it felt like it made sense. Yeah.
Mm.
So, but later, yeah, and now when I think about it, yeah, an IFI in OPS makes sense. It makes sense for me to be both in 5 and an IFI,
Mm.
even though FI is not a thinking function. But the thing is, FI in OPS is often connected with feeling, but it is more a priority function.
Hmm.
So I have my likes or dislikes, or what I feel is the more important thing in my life, what I want to do. And also fives, if you go by uh, eh, if you go by some teachings, you will know that 5 scramble the thinking and the feeling center.
Mm.
So they feel through thinking.
Mm. Oh.
So yeah, so
Mm.
when when fives think they are only thinking, uh, they are also scrambled with the feeling center. They also feel, or they're scrambled with the heart center. Sorry, so they think and feel kind of simultaneously, even
Mm.
though they believe they only think.
Interesting.
So yeah, and I learned this. I wasn't quite aware of this in the beginning, but the more I've learned about Enneagram, more I've found out having FI, Savior FI, is not counterintuitive for a 5.
Okay. All right. I was not expecting that, but that actually makes a lot of sense to me because I heard this theory that the hexad types start to scramble the centers in general.
Mm-hmm.
And so since 5 is touching on the border between the head center and the heart center, it is scramble. It would, if this theory is correct, it would scramble the head and the heart.
Exactly, and they are blind to the body.
Ah.
Because if you follow the Hornevian the Hornevian triangles, right? You have 4, 5, 9 are withdrawn. They are withdrawn from the body,
Hmm.
and both 4 and 5 are scrambling heart with the head, or vice versa. And if you follow and other Hornevian, for example, 1, 2, and 6, and super ego, they are scrambling they are blind to the head center, and they are scrambling body and heart.
Hmm.
And then you have uh, so that withdraw, and then you have the assertive types. So they are so the assertive types are blind to the heart, and they are scrambling body and mind.
Hmm. Is that because 2 out of the 3 assertive types are 7 and 8, which are literally on the border between body and head? Is that right? Am I saying that right?
Exactly. Yeah. If that so what so what's the causation for what I cannot tell, but
Yeah.
those are some of the theories which I cannot speak for the other triads, but I can speak for the withdrawn triad. What it makes sense for me as a 5.
From what I've heard, the reason, and this is not a complete reason, but the reason why it scrambles is because it's almost as if the assert how do I say this? Um, like 7 and 8 are right next to each other, bordering between body and head, and they're both assertive. Now, then you also have 4 and 5 are both withdrawn, and
Mm-hmm.
they're bordering between hearts and head. And then 1 and 2 are both superego, and they're bordering the hearts and the body. So it's as if that link in between is what is connecting the centers. And I guess there's no like stiff rule that says that you can't like there's no stiff rule that says there's no blending between the centers, I guess. And we can only guess from
Mm-hmm.
this, perspective from not knowing what's going on. But yeah, that's what I've heard so far.
Yeah, and and also in the Hornevian triad. So so the 9 is kind of the complete of of its halves 4 and 5. So 4 and 5 have aspects where, and the 9 kind of encompasses both in some way.
Oh wow.
Yeah, if you think about 6, right? The super ego of 6. So the super ego of 2 and the super ego of 1. That where the 6 feels more complete. It feels more as if they take in more aspects of a super ego, right?
Hmm.
Where 1 is much more body centric, and 2 is much more heart centric. Where and
Hmm.
6 kind of unites the combination of 1 and 2
Hmm.
from a super ego perspective. And 1 and 2 they feel more like specialized super ego, whereas 6 is kind of a constellation of both.
Hmm. What's really interesting to me about that is that an attachment type is what's keeping together two bordering types.
Yeah.
That's that rings as weird. Yeah.
Yeah, because we always talk about how attachment types are more adaptable, right? They are more
Hmm.
fluid, and the hexa types are more strict, are more inflexible.
Hmm.
It's easier to identify hexads because they are more narrow in how they present their type. There are more well now we know now we can get we get into a lot of theories, but if you see a trifix with 1 hexad and 2 attachments, the hexad is kind of stands out much more than the other 2 fixes.
Hmm.
If you have several hexad fixes, then they do not stand out that much anymore.
Hmm.
It's easier to see a 5 fix if it has if a 9 and a 3 fix is if the trifix is 5 9 3. It's much easier to see the 5 compared to someone having 5 1 2, for example.
Hmm.
They have 2 rejection types and 1 frustration, and they kind of compete of compete. They don't compete, but the hexads are more. I have a lot of comparisons, but they're all very, very technical, and they're all in science, and that doesn't make any sense. But because I imagine a type kind of like like a graph, and then you see peaks, and peaks
Mm-hmm.
are kind of the anecdotes that are very specific. And for a trifix which has one hexad and two attachment, you will see kind of a smooth curve, and then you see a one big peak, and that's the hexad type, and then you see a smooth curve. And there's if you have several hexad fixes, then I imagine the curve being couple of peaks, and some are higher, some are lower, and they are harder to differentiate. It's harder to see several to differentiate several hexad fixes in a trifix. If
Well,
and
I have a
especially,
question.
yeah,
I
sorry,
have a question
I will go
because
going in a
no, I
tangent
find it
there.
really interesting. I haven't had anybody so far that has done this, so I'm just living for it right now. But my question is, so you're basically saying that when you have one hexad and then two attachment, the hexad will stand out. However, my question is, will it only stand out in that person, or would somebody that's like triple hexad, would they stand out a lot, but only when they're around people that are attachment?
Oh, you mean do you mean the person as a whole stand out, or you?
Like, I'm asking, like, are you saying that the one hexad to attachment stands out within the person themselves? Um, let me just ask that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, I understand what you mean. I can only compare with myself, and I have only. uh, I'm not sure, but yeah, probably, because people who have had them. Okay, so I have not tracked so many people how they have seen themselves, or how their self-typing journey were. But I have the feeling that those who had only one hexad fix, so it had easier time seeing that hexad fix compared
Hmm.
to people who had several, because um because the hexad fixes are so narrow. So if you have only one specific part of you that is narrow on okay, and the rest is bland. Okay, this is probably, I'm not trying to insult anyone, but the hexad fixes are so narrow, because of that because of that narrowness, they go kind of, they make a bigger peak. It makes a bigger jump um, in this curve I was talking about. So if when you press, so if you have, okay, so okay, another example. Let's say you have a body of water, right?
Okay.
In a big tub, right?
Hmm.
So then you have then it's very shallow, but it's even. And so attachment type is more is broader, wider, so they can kind of distribute themselves on a bigger even um, area. But a hexa type, I would say, the footprint is much narrower. It's much smaller. It's like having not a bathtub but a bucket. So the water rises higher,
Okay.
and you will see the water which is higher much easier than a big
So in other
body
words,
of water which is shallower.
so if you have one hexad, it causes more disharmony within the typing than
Yeah.
would multiple hexad.
Yeah, multiple hexa, they will cause several. They will interfere with each other, or you will not see the. There are several peaks, and they are all the same, and you don't know which peak is causing my type.
Okay,
So you see
that's
there are
interesting.
so you see there are several peaks, and I was like, they are all high, and I cannot identify because and I feel in my then you will feel in yourself you have several strong your type goes in several strong directions, but they are all equal in strength. Whereas if you have only one hexad type, you have one specific part which is stronger than everything, but in a very narrow field, and it's easier to see. Oh, I do this much more than anything else, but only in this specific small part.
This is like ringing, this is lighting up some light bulbs in my head because I'm thinking about how, um, so like let's take a Bermuda for example. Their overlay ends up being like very apparent, like more apparent than other like non-Bermuda types. And I'm wondering if that's because hexads like it's almost as if there's a certain amount of space that's reserved for you to take up for both hexad and attachment. And so if you have like one hexad into attachment, all of the hexad like reserve space is piled up in one spot. But then for like somebody that's a Bermuda, since it's in their overlay, there's a lot piled up. Like there's a lot of reserve space for the overlay. And so maybe that's why it's so much more like compartmentalized and it's like a bigger thing for them. I don't know if I'm making that up. I don't know. It could be.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not sure, but
Yeah, it's hard to know. It's like a guess.
yeah,
Yeah.
because how I described five, because this is how I actually described five once, where when or the difference between a 5 and a 7, for example.
Hmm.
So so that you know that sevens are like go to the next brightest thing and go to the next brightest thing, and the 5 is kind go deeper, go deeper, go deeper,
Yeah.
and I described a 5. Um, what the problem with a 5 is that they are too niche. They go too
Hmm.
deep, and well, deep is not a problem in itself, but the problem is they don't look left and right. So
Hmm.
I explained it. It was like building a skyscraper on 1 square meter property.
Hmm.
So
Oh wow.
you go to the top, but the foundation is pretty much non-existing. So you found something at the top, but it's built on something which it's not stable. It's you are built on a foundation which is shaky. So if you just give it a push, then everything falls to pieces because you went too deep without gaining a big foundation before you went to the next step.
Interesting. Okay. Well, that's really interesting. We will come back to this.
Yes.
I just wanna, I just wanna like just briefly go through your OPS type. I think your OPS type is pretty easy to explain. Especially you being OI, this will be pretty breezy, I think. So like just in general, you are NiFi. What does being lead feminine NI mean to you?
Um, So in contrast to masculine and I am not that attached to ideas. If I notice the idea doesn't work, then I can change it.
Hmm.
I don't stubbornly keep on a specific idea, and regardless of what is happening around me, the idea must live on. Now, if the idea, if I noticed this idea is not working as I expect, because I get in, I find stuff which makes the idea not quite optimal, then I change it.
Hmm.
So I'm much more flexible with an idea to change it, and I am, because of masculine SE, I am more likely to respect a sensory stumbling block and change my idea
Hmm.
instead.
Yeah. Hmm. Interesting. Um, do you see yourself like doing like a pseudo NE? I'm just curious. Like, do you gather ideas?
Um. Okay. Let me think about this for a second. So pseudo NE. No, not quite.
Hmm.
I'm too focused to do that. No, not really.
How would you describe the feminine OI? Like the process of feminine OI?
The process of feminine OI is that OI in general. So that means NI and SI.
Well, I mean like specifically for you. Like I do mean your feminine NI, but like in general, like like building with feminine attached to it.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't really plan. I don't make long-term plans, to be
Hmm.
honest.
Okay.
I have an approximate trajectory which I follow, but I don't really have a big life plan. I know approximately in which direction I'm heading in, but if someone asked me what's my 5-year plan, I was like, I don't really have one.
Hmm.
And I I am, well, that is somewhat true. When I was 16 years old, then I knew my life until I was 24, because
Hmm.
I knew exactly at which university and which yeah and yeah which university and what I was going to study at the university, and I knew, more or less knew what I was going to become until when I finished my university. But that's the
Hmm.
longest term plan I've had.
Oh, I see. I relate to that. Like plans are very like weird for me as well. It's like it's not really like one exact. I just don't like talking about it because it's just so vague to explain it. Like it's just like okay. So let me ask you, like, is the sensory aspect of your plan like the actual physical thing you're attaining? Is that like obviously solid for you?
Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
I was not saying I'm going to be a master of science. I was going to be a master of science at that university, because
Mm-hmm.
that was the university that gave me master of science. Yeah, that was the only university that was. I think it was the university that I think that was the only university in Norway that gave me that exact degree I wanted to
Mm,
have.
I see.
It was also the most technical and the most prestigious university for the degree I wanted to have.
Interesting. So that ends up, I would guess that's your masculine SF. Like you're very locked onto, and I guess it's the combination, like being like sleep consumed. You're very locked onto a specific thing you want for yourself in the future.
Yeah.
I see.
But anything in, yeah, so that was my plan. But anything in between was fluid.
Hmm.
Because I went to Germany. I didn't know I was going to Germany like in my third year. And when I started my third year, then I kind of stumbled over the plan to go to Germany, and I went to Germany in my fourth year. But that was not really part of my plan at all. Like kind of like, oh, okay, well, let's do that.
Hmm. I
And
see.
then I found my wife in Germany, and I was like, okay, let's stay there.
Hmm.
And I just changed my plan according to what was happening in the real world.
Hmm. Interesting. Very interesting. It's very relatable. So okay, so you have NI and FI. Let's touch on the FI. How do you see like the well, I mean, it's kind of obvious so far. You're talking about like you want a specific thing that you like in your
Yeah,
plan, but like how else would you add to it?
I cannot motivate myself to do something if I don't like it.
Oh.
It must be something that speaks to me, and I can just cannot power through something which I am not on board with.
Hmm.
It just fizzles.
Hmm.
But if I like something, then I give it full focus and don't let go until I achieve it.
Hmm. Interesting.
And the 5 part, I'm going to mix a little bit 5 part, because the 5 part is kind of making things very narrow, right? Even more
Hmm.
narrow than usual NiFi sleep. So so there are less things I am interested in than probably a non-5 NiFi would be.
Hmm.
So I'm very inflexible in what I like and don't like. I don't change, to be honest.
Hmm. That's interesting. So I do want to ask here because I was talking to my friends in my group chat the other day. They're from OPS, and we noticed that some people are movable on their likes but stubborn on their values. Other people are stubborn on their likes and then movable on their values. So I'm curious. So are you saying you're like stubborn on your likes specifically? How about values?
Um, the thing is with values, I'm very narrow on my values. So
Hmm.
I don't care about a lot of stuff.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter. So, and that's also a very fine thing. I will, yeah. So I probably have a very small set of values, and everything which does not fall into my set of values, I don't care. I really
Hmm.
do not care about it. Doesn't matter. But if something falls into my set of values, yeah, then I care, and I will not budge.
Hmm.
Yeah, and so here's the thing. I can seem very movable, but I'm only movable in things I don't care about.
Hmm.
So do whatever. It doesn't touch me,
Hmm.
except for that. They are not movable. But I'm not that unmovable. I can compromise sometimes. So no, probably not. No, I don't compromise my likes because I cannot suddenly like something. That's impossible for me, and I cannot suddenly dislike something. I cannot be influenced to dislike something. It must come from myself. It will never come from someone else. And yeah, and with my values, no, I have to be the one who decides my own values. It cannot come from anyone else. I can be influenced if I gain new knowledge, where I myself will update my values, but I am the decider to that. So.
And how about the overall the NF? Like how do you define NF in yourself? Like do you see it as the vibes? Because a lot of people describe it that way, but it may not necessarily be accurate for like NF sleep, where it's like more like narrowing down personal values. That's a little different than vibes. So how do you see that?
If you go by vibes, I see it in music when I listen to music. That's where I feel the most vibes. Music. I've always loved listening to music, and music is. And I don't. When I listen to music, I don't care about the lyrics so much. I feel more the music in itself. It touches me in some way which is kind of abstract, and it's not the meaning behind the music. It can mean anything. I don't care what the artist who made the music wanted to convey, because I'm the one who decides how to interpret the music in whatever way I want. And so if a music touches me in some way, doesn't mean that that I cannot see what perhaps an artist would like to convey. So if I feel the same way as the artist, then it was a happy coincidence, but it doesn't have to be so. And I am, for someone who is supposedly should be a thinker, which is a 5, I rely much more on vibe in music than technical playing. I enjoy that too. I mean, don't get me wrong. I enjoy a combination of both, but it has to be both. If it's only technical and I don't feel a vibe, then the music is kind of sterile for me.
Interesting. I'm like processing what you're saying as you're saying it, and like I'm coming to this like idea in my head that you're like NIFI, but because you're a core 5, it's almost a little more like hybrid. I'm like trying to connect it with the specialized because you're a social 3. I'm like, how does that end up creating the core 5? Because that's all we have to explain the difference so far. So how do you see the specialized interfering with the NIFI, making it a little bit like technology, like or NT-ish?
So I'm okay. I have not been in the class for quite a while. So that, I mean, I haven't actually watched any of the social hierarchy classes.
I can explain it briefly. The specialized, I'll just explain the
You know,
specialized.
I know them. That means I understood it I understood them quite easily, I thought, because it kind of was, oh, that all makes sense, but I cannot use it. all the terms which were perhaps used in a class. So I'm kind of reverse engineer what I what my understanding
Lifestyle.
of yeah.
Okay.
So where were we? Oh yeah. So okay. So social hierarchy 3, and what do you want to compare it with?
Like how that makes your NiFi seem a little more thinkery, even though it is unique.
Okay. I understand. Um, yeah, because what was it again? There was so Dave and Shen talked about if now what was the aspect of which animal was the typical for social hierarchy 3? I forgot.
Blast.
Was blast? Yeah. So
Hmm.
I'm blast last, which and she used so if you are blast and a social 3, there was a term she used,
Congruent.
congruent, yeah, and I'm incongruent, which makes sense
Hmm.
because I feel it. That's one thing I actually notice in myself, because kind of feel as if there are two opposing forces.
Hmm.
I like to be yeah, I feel the urge for the social hierarchy 3, but I don't always have the drive to follow through, and I can only have the drive if FI is on board.
Hmm.
So that is kind of the crux in me, is that it doesn't matter how much something would be useful for me. If my FI is not on board, it yeah, I cannot follow through.
Let me ask you, because there was a recent class. This guy was, I forget his name, but his type was double masculine, TESI, blast, sleep, play, consume. And he was a 3, a social hierarchy 3, and he specialized in emotions. So even though he's FI last, he
Okay.
does have this sleep second, but he seemed a little like just constantly talking about feelings, like literally just like the subject was always feelings.
Okay.
So I think that I'm wondering, in your case, what is always the subject of your specialize? Like, is it NT? Is it ST? Like, which?
Oh. hmm Um, so I see my threeness mostly in work and not in private life.
Hmm.
So and the thing is, I do not specialize in anything for work outside work at the moment.
Hmm.
I there were some projects in a different job I was in, and then those projects I found very interesting. I liked them very much, and then I actually one of the few times I took my work at home and bought books and really um, dig deeper into the subject, and that was pretty much that was all technical and was not typical feeling. It was pure thinking stuff, if you yeah, if I would say it that way. And but it was specific for specific projects which I found incredibly interesting. But if I'm now currently at my work, it's not so interesting as my previous work. So when I am home, I push that out of my mind, and then I just go pure FI at home.
Hmm. Interesting. Hmm.
But yeah, but also, but I'm not sure if that is social hierarchy 3. So what I really like to do with in my also in my free time when I'm with other people is playing board games,
Hmm.
and I play to win. I don't play to socialize. I play to sit down, crack out a strategy, and crush my opponents. So that's kind of so that's my mentality when I go to a board game evening. I mean, the socializing part is fun, but cannot be only socialize. I'm very focused on winning when I'm playing.
Oh. Okay, so that's interesting because sometimes threes don't care that much about that. But sometimes they do. And I mean maybe the fact that your lead sleep, which it, like for flex, the animal is sleep. So maybe because your lead sleep, it's a little easier to activate that side where you're making it about like your identity or what you're building for yourself. I'm just guessing. I don't know.
Yeah, could be. I don't know. I haven't digged that much into the social hierarchy except for accepting that I was a 3 because nothing else made any sense.
Hmm. Okay. All right. So now let's touch on the consume. You have masculine consume.
Yes.
It's SF, um, which is interesting because you are this core five, you're a social hierarchy three. So you do have like thinkery traits, but you have masculine SF. Um, so how do you see that part, um, like influencing the mix?
It makes me very rigid in what I want to consume.
Hmm.
I'm I cannot pick up something else if I am on a path of consuming specific stuff.
Hmm.
I cannot just branch out. So even if typical, I bought a CD and then it stays at home for like a year, and then I start listening to it because I'm not in the right mindset to listen to that because I'm occupied with something else, and that's the only thing I want to occupy myself with. And so when I listen to specific music, I listen to only that for a very long time, and then I can switch when I've kind of exhausted that path.
Hmm. I see. I relate to that. I relate to that too. Even though I'm like lead OE, a lot of the stuff that you're saying is like just it's the same. So, but yeah, like a lot of the time, like I'll start like listening to maybe like 10 songs or something, and I'll use those for like 3 months or 4 months or 6 months, and then I'll just like find new ones, but it'll take a while to find them. Um, so that's really interesting. So I guess your taste with music is very like narrow, right?
Yeah, very narrow. So I yeah, um, it's narrow, but it has to have some depth to it. It has to have some discovery potential inside the narrowness. So while yeah, and this is interesting because I don't listen to many genres, but I like when the music is mixing
Mm.
aspects of different genres because it is something new I haven't heard before, which is kind of that's what the 5 is kind of looking for, the new undiscovered things. But on very narrow, so I listen to metal, but I like if metal mixes other stuff into it. So I accept other influences as long as the core is metal.
Oh, so you're like expanding the potential of the same thing by adding things to that same thing.
Exactly.
Interesting. Oh,
So yeah, and that
well,
has been a recurring pattern with me.
that fits
So
so well. The sleep consumed with five that it actually makes a lot of sense.
yeah,
Because like sleep consumed like sleep, like lead sleep, so like you're already narrowed down before you even start gathering, but
exactly.
you're still savior consumed, so it's still gonna expand.
Yeah,
So
in some way,
interesting.
but in a very controlled, narrow way.
Ah,
And I know,
wow.
and this is how I also, when I'm searching for something, and this is why I thought I was feminine sensory,
Hmm.
because I have problems taking thing through audio. I need to read, but it's not because I'm visual. It is because when I read, I'm in control of the speed, and also in control of the pace, and also in control of what I'm consuming, because I want to consume specific stuff, and I jump. I skip and jump until I find that piece I want. I know what's the next piece I want to consume, and I search for that specific piece. And if an audio is for me too much information, I cannot use. And
Hmm.
it's also sequential, right? Because audio, then someone tells me, and I cannot control them, and I cannot fast forward them to specific parts I need to hear. So I like to be in control over my
Hmm.
my consumption.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting because I have a big problem with reading. So we're like flipped there. I cannot read. Like I will like if I need to read, like if I have to read for like a class or something, I will because I have to, but it will be like so slow. Like I'm like trying to like get the information like exactly correct in my brain, like as
Hmm.
I'm reading it. And so I just like probably half as fast as the average person or something like that. So like the fact that you need to read, I'm just like, that's interesting. Huh.
I think this is where our opposite order of the functions come into play, because I'm connecting the dots whenever possible.
Huh.
If I can skip sensory, then I go for it.
Huh.
I only need tidbit here, tidbit there. I will connect all the dots I can, because I rely very much on my NI to connect the dots. I learn much more by connecting the dots than reading everything I need to read. I cannot do that because it's too slow for me.
Hmm.
And this is also a problem because I often skip crucial parts, and then
Hmm.
it's slower because I need to retrace what I skipped,
Hmm.
because I had so utmost confidence in my connecting the dots that I skipped crucial parts which I could not figure out. It would be impossible for me to figure out without actually reading it or consuming it.
Hmm. Okay, so you end up going over the same parts several times.
So, yeah, often, because I skip
Same.
too much.
Oh my God. Sometimes I have to read the whole paragraph 4 times, so totally relate there. Like, how many times do you think you end up like going over it?
Um, usually, I'm very good in skimming and skimming, but I don't go over, but I sometimes I don't really go over the same place. Usually not more than twice.
Hmm.
Usually not more than
Okay.
twice. But because I skim parts and I see this is information, but I skim it. I will get back to it later, because the next information I need to know is not that. I can I I cannot consume that part at all. It will not fit in. It will. There is no place for it, because I already know the next thing I need to consume, and when I consume that, gain understanding, then I can go back and consume what I skipped, because I was
Interesting.
not ready for processing that part. I had a very narrow,
Wow.
so I had a path I had to follow, and I know this, I know I need this information I see on my right side. I know I need it, but I have to follow my path because there is no place to put it. The path is what's matter.
That is crazy. That's really interesting. It's like you create the box by skimming first,
Hmm.
and then like if there's something missing in the box, you just fill it, but that's it.
Yeah.
Wow. That's interesting. Like I see myself like trying to like skip ahead. Like I'll try to like with my eyes, I look for what's important, and I just go there and like start from there, and then it's just it's so retarded. I but like the way you're explaining it is much more on the like NI heavy side. So that's really interesting. Huh. Okay, so let's go to your play, your ST play. This is another gathering animal, so you do it twice in a row. This makes you a glass lizard, meaning your ST at the bottom is activated twice. So with play, like, do you feel like play is difficult for you since it's third, but it uses both demons?
No, I don't feel it's difficult, but I since it's third, I prefer the other methods because they are faster. I think I'm
Mm,
faster just figuring stuff out myself. But when I start a new job, I use play a lot because I know everybody around me have the know-how I need is missing, and I know a lot of people around me can explain it to me much quicker than I can figure out myself. And then I'm relying heavily on play. Then I am asking people and drilling down, and I ask specific questions. And when I say this is how I done it, and then they want to explain more, and I said, okay, that's enough. I have I have the key information I need. Now I can go back and
hmm.
continue my usual figure out the rest myself.
Well, I've seen that from so many IJs. That same exact thing. That's so interesting. Um, is there like something you prefer to ST play about, like because you specialize in a five and stuff?
What do you mean prefer?
Like because play's also gathering,
Yeah.
so like is there a specific subject that you like to ST?
Uh, hmm. Are there specific stuff I like to do? That's a good question. Where I prefer play before anything else, you mean?
Yeah, like since it's ST, it's like doing work. Perhaps um,
For
at least
work?
in like at least in my case, like I actually really enjoy doing math and science. I really enjoy doing that, like
Hmm.
ST doing that. Um, Perhaps maybe for you it's something related to like stuff you do.
Okay, so if we take play as a non-verbal or more like action-oriented, how I like to work is because I'm working in software, I program. So I like to program, snippet, test, and check if immediately if that worked before I go to the next step. So that is a way I prefer to kind of use ST. I interact and check check how what the result was, and then I kind of correct myself multiple times. And what I don't like to do is, I know some people do it. They sit down and then they program for one day, do nothing else. They just type everything else, and then they run it and see if it works.
Hmm.
I have to have small bursts of interaction with the computer and do constant small iterative tests. That means that I get a constant feedback if I am heading in the right direction. So
Hmm.
that is how I would say you utilize play in a non-verbal way, in that I am constantly checking, I mean, the correct, I'm doing it. Yeah, so that would be very, yeah, that would be the ST way to do it. I take the sentry, I figure it out, I try something, kind of throwing things at the wall, check if it works, and does it work how I expect it to do? Yes, no, then I adjust, try again, adjust, try again, adjust. So that's kind of the play, my kind of play without actually interacting with people. That I'm not interacting with my computer,
Hmm.
because the computer
Interesting.
is also an interactive um, object in the sense of I do something and I get a reaction out of it.
Hmm.
And often I do not sit down and try to figure out everything beforehand and then I have it in my brain. Sometimes I just want to see, if I do this, how does it react? And I was like, oh, it does it that way. Okay, cannot use that. I'll try something else. And this can go back and forth many times within an hour. So that
Hmm.
is how I see my play work without interacting with people. But in interacting directly with people, uh, uh, to be honest, I do stupid jokes, one-liners.
Hmm.
That's a lot of my play is just I notice something is something was said and I interact with it quickly and see the reaction and then kind of back and forth.
Hmm.
But in my
So
work, I
dad
prefer.
jokes.
Hmm?
Dad jokes.
Yeah, dad jokes perhaps, but situation jokes, right? It's jokes
Yes.
which do not make sense outside the situation. I just see something and I say a stupid one-liner, get a cheap laugh, and then I move on.
Hmm.
But the thing is, I am, yeah, at my work, a lot of solitary stuff at work. So, but if I'm stuck, I have found out I don't always have the patience to text people. We use Slack. I'm not sure if you know Slack. That's so that's kind of a communication platform, and sometimes I call people because I like to speak with them because the information flows faster. Because when I ask someone, then they give me an answer immediately, and then I can steer the conversation much faster in the way I want to, instead of writing a long piece of text, send it, and wait for a reply. That's also times when I utilize play, because the the fast interaction is quicker using speech instead of just text.
Hmm. Hmm. Interesting. So how about like receiving criticism from the tribe? Usually they even play that can be like sensitive to the tribe's perspective on their work. Are you like sensitive with that?
Yeah, of course. When my work is criticized, I was like, okay. So, but first, I have to mentally uh, rewire myself, kind of way. When I get a criticized, when I was like, so when I'm criticized, I feel like my I did something wrong, and I don't like being wrong. But I understand that being wrong needs to be fixed, and then I get into kind of my 5 competency mindset, where like it's better to be right. My feelings, so my competency kind of takes over, and sees the it sees the what do you call it, the necessity of correcting things, and what I want. So I'm not someone who reacts and shouts back at people if they say I've done something wrong. I try to correct myself,
Hmm.
even if I don't like being corrected. But
I see.
yeah, I still like being correct in retros afterwards, even though it meant I was not correct before.
That makes sense to me. Like you have the lead sleep, so you're controlling what you're ending up gathering from the play. And but since you're flex over friends, you would rather be right, even in that process. So that's interesting.
Yeah, so when people are constructive, I say to myself, okay, your ego is not hurt at the moment. Take on the constructive criticism as it is. Usually I have no problems with it, to be honest. It's only when I think I did something 100% correct and it was wrong in some way, and but I'm more pissed with myself. I'm
Hmm.
not really angry about the people who are correcting me, because I was like, oh, how could I miss that? So
Hmm.
so it is kind of like a self blame, but
Hmm.
but it doesn't also help anything to self blame. Only thing that helps is actually correcting the issue. So that is the focus in the end.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Okay.
but it really depends on the context on or what happened. I don't like making stupid mistakes. When I made a mistake because I was sloppy, then I am the most annoyed with myself. If I made a mistake because it was a mistake that anyone could do, I don't care that much. But if I did a sloppy work, then I am annoyed with myself.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay. See a lot of social hierarchy three and competency here. So now let's go to your blast last. It is double feminine NT blast last. And so do you think that you're like you blast like quite a bit because it uses your top two functions, or you don't think it affects that at all?
Mm, I have been using Blast quite much because it is necessary through my work, and I've learned to use it, and yeah, I was even a manager for 6 years,
Hmm.
uh, it, but I found out that's not my best fit.
Uh,
But that one I powered through because I liked being in control and having more control over getting my vision through, because I have had ideas I wanted to get through, and if I had control over the software team doing the work, then I had more leverage getting my vision through. So that's
hmm.
kind of why I liked being a manager, being more in control. But I didn't like all the responsibility, reporting and so on was terrible for me. Um, but what I actually did not have much problem with was explaining stuff to people.
Hmm.
I I even arranged, that was a job recently. I even arranged a small uh, tutorial, a seminar, very small
Hmm.
seminar for people, because I wanted to have a tool introduced to the team, and they said they don't know about it. So I said, okay, I will explain it to everybody. So I had so a 3 day seminar with the team and explained how everything worked, and prepared slides and everything. And when I did that, and I could get my tool through. But creating those slides is probably the most painful thing I do. I hate making slides. I hate making PowerPoint stuff. PowerPoint is kind of my enemy number one. It is so incredibly slow for me to get um, to do the blast, consolidate the information in a digestible way.
I'm not surprised that the blast wasn't as difficult for you because you're specialized, and that's technically social blast. So your role socially is to do blasts in
Yeah,
a very, very narrow area. So it's interesting that it's like it's giving you your last animal, or that you're technically incongruent because of it. It's making you need to build blasts more than someone that isn't, like, let's say someone specialized last, they would feel even less like, I don't need blast if it's
yeah,
last and
exactly. Yeah, no, but
yeah.
I need it, and it's a very conscious process, and it's a slow
Ah,
process using blast for me.
okay.
So when people kind of like they just use the wizard whatever, and then they have a PowerPoint presentation within 15 minutes or whatever, and I take an entire day to get a couple of slides done. I hate
Hmm.
it. I really hate it because
Huh.
it's so slow.
Yeah. How about like the blast part? Like, do you find that if it's within your specialized, your blast is ready to go?
Yeah, if I know, yeah, if it is something I really know
Hmm.
beforehand, yeah, I have no problems using blast. But I cannot. Yeah, for example, and this is oh yeah, this is actually a very good example. For example, when I have a new game or board game for my family, and I need to read the manual and then explain them how it works, that's always a small disaster because I read through, and then I start explaining, and then I have to consulate with my manual, and it's a slow process, and people are getting frustrated because they cannot start playing because I need to understand the rules before I can explain them.
Oh.
And understanding is one thing, but because then I was like, okay, I understand it, but I cannot give them. I cannot let people connect the dots. I need to explain them in details because there are rules, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, they cannot wing it like me because
Huh.
they haven't read the rules, and I need to give them the rules in a concise way, and I forget stuff. And I was like, and then I explain, and then we start playing. Oh, right, I forgot something, and they said, "That's Mats, you should have told us way before we started." So
Hmm.
yeah, that's the
Wow.
pain with blasting unknown stuff or stuff I just recently learned.
Hmm. Yeah, I relate there. I also need to like I think it's just like the consume double activated. It's just a lot of getting it perfectly well gathered, plus the sleep. So it's just twice the introverted before you can even start talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really tough. Oh, okay. So now let's just jump right into your Enneagram typing with the structure here this time. So like you are social self-pres 5, 5 wing 6.
Yeah.
Um, so what does that mean to you um, in terms of like socially? What are you trying to do with 5?
Mm, so the instincts are kind of the driving factor, right? That is kind of the overall game. And um, what I'm trying to do, I just want to live. No, I don't know. uh, okay, that's just such an open-ended question.
I mean, like for example, like for my own type, like social aid, I try to have like a social impact. Like just I
Yeah.
keep on like trying to move
Ah,
this
okay,
stuff.
okay. Yeah. I don't. Yeah, social impact. I like to track the social interactions. I like to see. I like to understand the social. I like. I tend to track if there is someone new I don't know. I need to know who they are. I need to know where they are in the on the board, so to say,
Hmm.
and what their position is. And when I know that, I don't care so much about them anymore. But I know this is a piece I can place, and so I kind of try to um, map the pieces on the board and see and understand how they interact with each other. But I'm not so concerned with in myself interacting with them. Oh, I do like giving insights, and that's kind of the 5. The narcissism of 5 is providing a unique insight no one else have given before,
Hmm.
and but yeah.
Hmm.
So that is how I kind of operate generally. But the thing
Question.
is, I'm
So
sorry.
did because you're social self-pres, do you end up giving insights about like social rules or like how social things work?
The thing is, uh, no, I don't do that at all.
Hmm.
Or do I do that? Because at the moment I'm kind of very much into Enneagram, right? So I'm interacting with people from Enneagram, and the topic is Enneagram.
Hmm.
But and I have the thing is, when I try to give insight into social interactions, you have to be very careful because I don't always hit, and if there's I sometimes do miss, or I annoy people or anger people, especially if I make a very superficial comments about politics. I just have an idea and I just spew it out, and then there will be someone who will be, um, well, although I don't. It depends on when people I know get annoyed with me because I have specific ideas about politics. Then I tend to try to keep my mouth shut because about specific parts, um, because I tend to criticize often my ideas in politics will criticize one nation, And if the persons are of that nation, they get very defensive. And I don't want to talk with people who are emotionally loaded. I notice when they start to get emotional, and then when we're entering, then the discussion enters more in a more irrational field, and I don't care about that at all. I would rather like to discuss ideas without people uh, starting getting emotional and hurt about stuff, because then the discussion derails. So I found out I cannot discuss many of my
Hmm.
uh,
Social
of
insights.
social insights, because um, the yeah, people are very touchy
Hmm.
about a lot of these subjects.
I see.
And then and then when people do not respond in a rational way, but more from some kind of ego, super ego, righteous way back, then I see there is no point in talking about this, because there is
I see. I think this is your Bermuda adjacent
yeah,
because I this is very similar to what I experienced with the my 963 adjacent uses 693
yeah,
adjacent. Ah.
yeah. But the thing is, and this is probably also, yeah, so it is attachment, a Bermuda adjacent, and at the same time rejection, because um, if what I say are met with deaf ears, what's the point of speaking?
Hmm.
Then I don't need to speak to those people. It's useless. So then I topic is dead. I have nothing more to say.
Mm. So that's where you have to be indispensable as a rejection type.
Yeah, because if people stop listening to me, then yeah, but although when I help, let's say people ask me for help, right? And I start giving them tips and advices, and they stop listening to me. Then I said, well, if you don't need to, if you don't want to listen to me, well, then I have, then this conversation is over.
Mm.
We don't need to do this anymore. You can figure out yourself.
This is so familiar. It's just like a different center. Okay.
Yeah, but but when I want to dive into a specific direction, but you didn't, there are some, yeah. I don't like being I don't like touching things with gloves, right?
Mm.
I hate it. So if I need to do touch things with gloves, I rather don't touch it at all.
Hmm.
I can touch it with gloves, right? But then it derails into useless discussion, and discussion I don't want to take part of, because I don't get anything out of it.
Hmm. That's interesting. I'm gonna try to see how is that directly connected to the rejection thing because um, it's obviously not attachment, so it has to be the rejection.
Um, well, rejection is all about leverage, right? They have
Hmm.
power. Yeah. So if the inside of a 5 gives no leverage, then this insight, um, yeah, then I cannot use this insight. Yeah, if I
Hmm.
cannot use an insight as leverage, then then it is kind of useless. Then it's only useful for myself, and then I will use it only for myself.
Oh. Hmm.
So that means my ideas will then be stuck in my head. I will just continue diving into ideas without interaction with other people.
No wonder this is a type that is so often for people that have like fucking lead TI and shit. Like, it sounds so much like TI to me. It's like it's your ideas, like your your work is
Yeah.
your leverage. Huh.
Oh, yeah. The thing is, and this is because I have also involved. I've also read a little bit about socionics, where they have used all 8 functions,
Hmm.
and I am yeah. So I'm not sure how much you are into socionics.
I understand it enough that you could say the type and I will know.
Yeah,
But
so
but
I'm ILI, so that's kind of the classic MBTI INTJ,
okay.
and the TI function is very familiar for INTJs.
Hmm.
So the TI is so this is something they can use without any issues, but they don't use it for the same purpose as someone who has TI in their 2 top functions, right? It's more used in private, more like, okay, think about stuff. So here is where my socionics knowledge, yeah, I haven't studied enough, but yeah, so when you see that it feels like TI, it is because perhaps it is TI,
Hmm.
but a TI in a different type structure. It makes sense
Hmm.
to talk about TI in socionics, but since we cannot talk about TI for my type structure in OPS, we need to find workarounds.
I see.
And that is yeah, you know, the strengths and weaknesses of all types of different typology systems.
Interesting. So how about the six wing? How do you describe like when the six wing comes into play to like is it like it's softening the five in any way or
Yeah, if you compare, I wrote this on a Discord server. The difference between the 5-4 and 5-6
hmm
is that a 5-6, the IDs must have a purpose in the real world. Doesn't have to be functional, but it must the purpose must be for the real world. Whereas 5-4 does not really care about that.
hmm.
So the real world, that means imagine it can take place in the real world. I don't know if it's useful or functional, but it is the purpose is that the idea of my idea is connected to the real world in some way. So it has some connection to where we are living, whereas 5-4 are much more insular, much more yeah, narcissistic in a way that the ideas are solely for themselves. Could incidentally work for the rest of the world, but when they peak out and say something, but it's not really what the target is.
Interesting.
Because because a 6-wing gives kind of the connection to something that could be used in a practical way. Well, that's the idea. the thing is with the 5, when they go into a niche, they may have the idea, oh, this will work, right? And then it falls apart, and I was like, oh shit, oh well, whoopsie.
Hmm. Interesting. All right. That's interesting to know. It's like the attachment wing brings it back to the collective, especially in the case of 5 wing 6, where 6 is a reality type.
Yeah.
It's like back to where other people can work with it. Um, what's really interesting to me is that you're FITE, yet you're a 5 wing 6, because usually like the 6 wing would like suggest that you don't start out thinking in the TE, you start out like thinking individually. So it's almost like you break the rules in us in the like the OPS definitions. Maybe just with the NI, I don't know.
You mean where the original? Are you talking about kind of like where my ID start, the origin of an idea, or
Yeah, like the 5, the idea is it starts within by itself, like it's isolated, and then with the 6 wing you branch out, but the fact that you're starting out isolated and building with yourself, it's as if you're TI in some way.
yeah? I So from my type structure, I kind of get triggers from the outside.
Hmm.
I mean, because I started with like Enneagram, right? I didn't
Hmm.
invent Enneagram. So there was a real world theory which I grasped. I understand how it was, but then I started building on that and made so yeah. I, and here is how I often tend to understand things is I need to explain ideas with my own words.
Hmm.
I need to I see an idea, I take it in me, and then I need to make the idea my own. Not that I say, not that I know said the idea is mine now, not yours, but I need to formulate the idea in a world I understand.
Hmm.
So then I kind of mutate it into something I can explain with my own words, and then I build on top of that.
I see.
So
Okay, so it's
yeah, so what,
just sleep.
yeah, so what often happens is that I see an idea and then I see the anecdotes and then I stop looking for the anecdotes. I ignore them. I go reverse engineer back to the core. Now I understand what's the principle, what is the core of the idea. And then I build my own understanding out of that. And then I create anecdotes out of thin air sometimes.
Oh, well, how do you
Because
mean that?
that is the logical that is how, if using my rules and how I think about this idea, so the logical anecdote that could be produced out of this idea would be this and this and this.
Ah, oh, interesting.
And then I try to see, does this match up with the real world? Well, I don't always do that, to be honest.
Hmm.
I just build more and more and more on top of my my own understanding, even though it may not even fit whatever is outside.
Wow, this is honestly so enlightening because I feel like, I mean, obviously five's pretty rare type, core type especially. And so like I've always had a very hard time seeing my line to 5 and like the way you're explaining it, it is so like clear to me. Um, like rejection is almost like all the rejection types are kind of like ego focused.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
whereas like I mean like specifically with five, it's like it's ego within the um ability to think and the ability to create thoughts and like systems. Um, so that's really interesting. Like I like prior to this interview, I would not have been able to spot where is five. Um, but it's just so obvious, just the way you're explaining it. Interesting. Oh, all right. So let's move on to nine. So your second fix is nine wing one. Now this is like it's interesting because like nine wing one specifically is seen as like the more heady of the body fixes in the sense that like if you have nine wing one like with six next to it, it even if you're like core nine, you can still look like a six because that one just like refines um, like whatever you're trying to do with the six. Whereas like if that they're nine wing eights core with like six secondary, it can actually appear a lot like a lot
Hmm.
slower. Um, so with you having nine wing one secondary, I wonder if that almost speeds up your five, you think, or do you have other thoughts about it?
It gives me the ability to look left and right
Hmm.
because nine in itself is kind of the I discussed this with someone where a five goes deep, right? A nine is kind of is often seen as the universal one, right? Sees the big picture, sees everything around them. So
Mm,
it kind of helps the five not losing track of the big picture, as long as five stops for a moment to take a breather and let the nine do a kind of a check around. And then there is the one fix, is that's the competency, right? It's solution driven. Also frustration. It wants it it knows there is something better. It feels it in the body that there is something better that can be achieved.
mm,
And that is why I think nine wing one is faster in the sense of um, it
mm,
wants to get to the next step in some way. But nine wing eight is also nine wing eight, yeah, because of assertiveness. Yeah, the frustration is kind of the frustration aspect of the one wing is is kind of a motivator to look to look further, to
mm.
find something better, to improve.
I see. Hmm. Yeah, I would imagine the nine wing eight is like a little heavier because um I mean also just given the fact that with the one wing you have an extra competency there. So you gotta look like you're doing what you're doing right. Like
Hmm.
whereas with eight it's like more barbaric and aggressive, so it's just not
Yeah,
really adding. Yeah.
it is also frustration versus rejection, right?
Hmm.
So so rejection can seem slower because they cut away things,
Hmm.
right? Whereas frustration cannot forget. It is a constant reminder that things how they are could be better. Whereas rejection says, I don't care.
Hmm.
So the rejection does not always need to move. because they don't have the drive. They don't have a drive that says there could be something better, because rejection cuts, whereas frustration cannot unsee. So frustration is always reminded there is something better, and so they feel more motivated in pursuing something which is better. That is how I see it.
I see. No, that makes sense. Like there's something better, their competency, like it just adds more refinements, and that's like a good complement to the head center, probably, or something
Yeah,
like that.
double competency. Yeah, because it enforces the competency part of the 5.
Hmm. Okay. Interesting. Okay, so now are you relating to like the like anecdotes of Nine Wing One? Like like how does it express itself given that your core 5, so that's your lens? So maybe you see Nine Wing One a specific expression in yourself.
Um. Okay, so I am not sure if I can. So 911 is still a withdrawn part, and the withdrawn is kind of with 5 and 9. I feel more fluid in a way,
Hmm.
but at the same time, yeah, but how to say it? I'm for I'm sensitive to temperature, which I can imagine a wing 8 would be less sensitive to temperatures. I'm not sure. Okay, no, I'm just going full anecdote. Um,
Hmm.
I don't like it too hot. It's yeah, that disturbs me if it's too hot. I cannot be when it's too hot. I cannot think. I don't like it also too wet. I am very sometimes peculiar with the temperature at times. I like it to have it perfect.
Hmm.
And also things which I notice with my 9 wing 1, and I don't see the 9s, I see the 1s in this case. Let's say I walk by a fridge, and the fridge is open in the grocery store. I feel compulsed to close the fridge.
Oh, I wouldn't. I mean, it depends.
Yeah,
Depends.
no, I was like, because I see, okay, so now the coolness seeps out of the fridge.
Hmm.
It's inefficient.
Hmm.
I don't like it. It disturbs me. I need to close it.
I would just immediately look around at like who did this, like who left this open.
Oh no, I don't do that at all.
Oh wow.
Because what's the point? I can just close it and then it's done, and then I can move on.
Because I don't know, like maybe they're doing something and um
Oh,
yeah.
okay. No, those considerations never enter me, because I see and I know, okay, someone forgot to close it. I never think that perhaps someone could have done it by purpose. I see, no, it's wrong, close it. And
That makes
if
sense. I
someone
mean, like
comes, yeah,
the fact like I'm core body, so I'm like thinking like what is the agenda, like what's happening.
yeah,
But like with you, it's like with the core head, you're thinking like, well, what can you do to fix the problem or something like that.
yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
But then, yeah, but that is does not really see a 9 fix. Yeah, I don't have that many issues with physical boundaries, to be honest. I do
Okay.
have, but
I mean, your core rejection, so it should be easy to say no and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's never really a problem. And I and when yeah, I think my nine fix is so hard to explain
Hmm.
because I cannot really do it. Perhaps it is my five blindness to the
Well,
body.
nine is notorious for having a hard time seeing itself, because that's part of it.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
a magic trick, you know.
yeah. I talked with someone about also flatline who is on nine core, and we were talking about that they see their body as a heavy, sludgy object. And I see, and I was like, no, I feel my body is light and can spring out of the chair at a moment's notice. I don't
Hmm.
feel my body is heavy at all. I feel it's fleeting from one place to another without much effort.
Hmm.
I've always been very light on my foot. I've always have no problems doing. I can even enjoy physical work. I love going to amusement parks. I love roller coasters. I love jumping from high heights and whatever.
You know, I've noticed like it's not all of the nine wing ones, but some of them they walk really fast.
Oh yeah, I do. I walk like an overseer, like straight up, and as on a mission.
Oh wow, that makes sense. The one like apparently like one fixtures, I guess also one wings, like they're very like stiff, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, and I walk fast, very fast,
Mm.
but I don't feel hurried. That's just my normal tempo. And when I'm with my wife, I always have to slow down. And I
Oh.
say, either I say, please go ahead so I can match your tempo. Because if I am slightly ahead, I don't notice that I
Hmm.
am gaining speed and just increases the distance between us.
Yeah. Huh. That's interesting. Okay, so now let's jump to the three fix. So this is where you double up on competency. Well, technically you added half a competency with the one wing, but this is your second competency fix.
Hmm.
So how do you see three? Like, it's three wing two. Usually they call three wing two the life coach fix. I don't know if you relate to that.
I I really, yeah. So the thing is, I don't have a four. That's the obvious one. I don't have a four wing. I know that I don't have the four wing because I don't have much frustration in my body, to be honest. And I feel my flat lininess fits well to a three wing two, and I and yeah, I also like so this is also the second the rejection influence from the two wing. I like the I like giving an offering that I can when I am able be to give an offering for something instead of I must think. Oh, I have to think. Three wing two. Yeah. Okay. So much more, much frustration less, and more sterile. Yeah, life coach is good. giving people advice. I can give advice whenever people. I mean, if people ask me for advice, I give them. No problem at all. And of course, 3 gives me the necessary assertiveness to get things through to other people when I feel it's necessary.
Hmm.
Because
I
I can
see.
push if I want to. If I want specific direction, I push.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I don't push that hard.
Do you
But
see
it's
yourself like changing your image on purpose? Like if you notice you're starting to look a certain way, you will like totally change your
so yeah, that's a good question because I don't always see it, to be honest.
okay.
I can see it, and sometimes I don't care. I give a specific image, and if this image does not land at someone, then I usually do not care. It depends on my, if it's an image I like about myself or like about myself. If it depends on what I want to accomplish, right? Because if my image, if specific parts of me are a hindrance for something I want to get through, I may subdue it, but I don't really change. And often I'm oblivious, and often I am also stubborn because I don't want to change, because changes never stick with me. I kind of
Hmm.
always revert back to my old self, and I was like,
I see.
but well, there are some examples where I don't see I changed the image of myself, but I learned stuff like um, I'm usually in a good mood, and I there was in my job I started greeting people good morning, uh, almost enthusiastically, and I notice this gives people a better impression of myself, which fits perfectly to me, because then I have an easier time getting things through to people.
Hmm.
But it doesn't cost me anything because I am in a good mood, so I can show it, right? It doesn't cost me anything, so I make adjustments to how I project what I feel inside me to other people, right?
Hmm.
So I enhance things which is already there. So it's less changing myself. It's more like subduing or enhancing things which I already have.
Mm. I see.
And yeah, so being, for example, being polite, right? When I text or chat with my colleague, when I text my colleagues, I know that if they did something well, and I tell them good good work, I know they will be motivated to um, be more receptive of my ideas in the future.
Mm.
And it's just simple things, right? But I think like saying thanks and a thumbs up, you know,
Oh.
very simple adjustments, because because it was genuine for me. I liked what they did, so why not show them that I liked it? But this is something I've learned, because I tend to forget about this, because I when I'm when people have given me the information, then it's kind of dead end. They don't receive anything from me at all because I forget about them. But I have learned that give people some response back is perhaps a good thing to do, because then
That's
they
interesting. So you're using 3 to achieve more 5 and 9.
yeah,
Wow. Okay.
because I know and I've done this. I've been annoyed with one guy because he was always incredibly nitpicky with
Hmm.
stuff, with things which I said, why so nitpicky? Or I said to myself, why so nitpicky? It's very unimportant. But I also said to myself, he is actually doing a lot of work for the company. He's being actually useful for the company. Perhaps it's annoying, perhaps he's overdoing it, but it is better that he overdoes it a little bit than does nothing, which a lot of other people would do, right? Being useless.
Hmm.
So in those cases, I go into myself and see, okay, this is useful what he's doing, and then I actually compliment him and said, good work, so that he will continue being useful. And the side effect is, when I need his help, he is more receptive, or when I want to
Oh.
get things through, he is more receptive. So
Hmm.
this is, I think, this is the perhaps the image thing I'm
Hmm.
using 3 for, that even though I can be stubborn and I want my things to, I can at least be polite about it. Then people will not have their feelings hurt, and they will be more receptive of what I want to achieve. And I didn't really change much. I just
Hmm.
changed my tone. And I think this is a 3-9 thing to be also, because I sometimes do not check my tone, and
Hmm.
people are I can be very blunt because I forget to check my tone. So I'm
Rejection
trying to be
tone.
more conscious about that.
Oh my God. I strongly relate there that the rejection tone can feel very like it's almost like pseudo negative in a way. Like it's like you're trying to push, it's literally trying to push something away. So yeah, especially I would imagine, especially in your case, being core rejection with 6 wing, there it may feel like a lot of like push plus reactive. Like I can
Yeah,
definitely see that.
yeah. 6 wing is also I'm right. There's a little bit of super ego involved. Even wing 4 is also right because they are also reactive. Yeah, so the 5 is actually have both reactive wings.
Wow, interesting. Speaking of superego, your overlay is triple superego.
Yeah, I know. I'm full blown Karen.
So how are you seeing the superego overlay?
Interesting, because I actually talked about this also at the Discord server, and it's hyper specific.
Hmm.
It
Okay.
only kind of triggers on very specific narrow things, and the rest I don't give a shit about.
Mm.
So I am, yeah. I usually really, because I'm not some. So what I never do is um, I never preach.
Hmm.
That I never do. Um, but I have specific values which are super ego-ish, I would say, that I will say no, that's a no-go. and that's
Mm.
not yeah, and I think those are super ego parts.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So it becomes a very narrowed thing.
Yeah,
I wonder if that's influenced by the Core 5, where it just
I think
uh,
so. I think, you know, I mean, everything is narrow through the lens of Core 5, so it kind of infects my general perspective of most things.
hmm, okay, interesting.
So narrow sea of super ego, and everything outside, I don't care. I'm a
I
much,
see.
very much live and let live kind of guy in that sense.
Hmm, interesting. Wow, I was not expecting that. At least in my case, the 974, it's, I mean, it comes out um, kind of randomly, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? This is weird. I mean, it's totally the opposite. So, but in your case, the flat line is not necessarily opposite to triple superego. So maybe there's less contrasts when it comes out.
How you mean? What do you mean?
Contrast as in like in my case, 863 is triple reality, 974 is triple fantasy. So there's like a huge contrast.
Ah, okay, 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 okay.
Yeah.
I don't think there is an obvious
Hmm.
opposite. No, super ego is yeah. So yeah, super ego is also hard and to really grasp. I get annoyed with people doing their super ego,
Hmm.
but I kind of understand them, if you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Hmm.
but it's not my world.
I think I understand what you're saying in the sense that, at least also for me, when people do fantasy shit, I'm like, what is that? But obviously, I also relate to it with in my overlay. So I think it's probably the same thing for you in the sense that you're saying like super ego stuff kind of triggers you.
Yeah,
Um, so it's like you know what it is, but it's not
exactly.
like
I
your
see it.
thing.
I see it. I see exactly what it is.
Ah,
And I was like, oh, can't you just not? Things would be much easier if you just let go of your super ego and try to open your eyes a little bit, see more perspective.
hmm, interesting. All right. Well, I think we've covered all the parts. If there's anything else that you can think of that we haven't covered, um,
Probably, but not now.
okay. Okay. All right. That was a lot. This one went pretty far. All right. So goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you. It was fun.
Nice to, thank you. Glad to have you.